Welcome, everyone. It's the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
Steve Lacy, how are you today on a hot summer day in Tucson, Arizona?
I'm doing good.
Good. These are the days you probably don't take the top down on your convertible, or do you on
I
days like this?
do actually. I drove over to my son's early in the morning, actually Sunday morning, with the top down. It was actually a little cold.
Yeah, but that's
So
early in the morning. When it's 106 out, do you drive around with the top
no,
down?
I don't go with it when it's hot.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. You turned the air conditioning on,
It did
right?
get hot later that day, but yes, in the morning it was cold. In the afternoon it was hot.
Not to derail this podcast, but I will. I haven't, some of you know, I do a lot of off roading. Well, I do some off roading. I don't do as much as I used to. Have a Jeep, and it's an old Jeep. But I always laugh at these guys that are on the trail with me because I won't mention anybody by name, Michael Gray, but they run their air conditioning when they're off roading, because they got these newer rigs. So they run AC when it's 100 degrees out, and
And you
I'm in
would
an
too, right?
I'm in an old Jeep. No, I would never do that. All
Hmm.
right. Enough foolishness here. So we have a guest today, which we will introduce in a moment or so. But we have a great webinar coming up here real soon. It's July 18th, and we've got the great Jason Moore, a big part of this webinar. Tell us about the webinar real quickly, Steve, and how people can sign up.
All right. So webinar is titled 7 Ways to Create More Engagement in Your Hybrid Worship. This is a talk that Jason Moore, who's written the book Both And, is well versed in and is presented, I guess, several times. So it's gotten really good reviews, and people can sign up to participate in our webinar at webinar.streamingchurch.tv.
Webinar.streamingchurch.tv is where they can sign up. This will be a good webinar. Jason Moore is really good. He's a good presenter. He's a good author. He's written over 12 books, and probably work on another one. And he does a lot of great stuff. He speaks all over the
And
country.
yeah, and this is all about maximizing your in-person and online worship. So
Yeah,
he's got all the tips and tricks.
yeah,
So if
he
you're
does.
struggling with your online worship, or even if you aren't,
Yeah.
tune in.
All
It's
right.
free.
There you go. Well, speaking of online stuff, we have the Senior Director of Cameras with Marshall Broadcast and Pro AV, Tod Musgrave, helped establish the Marshall Camera Division well over 10 years ago, from the first POV camera to better camera solutions for professional broadcasting and users worldwide. And Marshall Broadcast is a brand that's actually been going on for over 40 years. They are industry leaders when it comes to cameras and other things as well. And so, as I said, Tod is the director of this camera division. Tod, welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, we're glad to have you on. You're over there in Southern California,
Yes.
kind of in our neck of the woods. I mean, we're in Arizona, but you're in Southern California, although you're from the East Coast, I guess. How long have you been out in Southern California?
Gosh, I don't want to date myself, but it's been about half my life, if that's descriptive enough, about 25 years.
Okay, well, good.
Uh, but we're not getting that heat you guys are getting yet. We still have June gloom going on near the coast. So
Yeah, do you? All right, well,
relatively cool.
I go out to San Diego quite a bit, and they have a lot of May gray and June
May
gloom and
gray
all
and June
that.
gloom.
But
That's
so
right.
real quick, I'm going to let Steve Lacy ask you some questions here. But when I first heard of Marshall, I immediately thought about Marshall amps, because I used to do music at my church and stuff. But the Marshall Broadcast Company you're with, actually doesn't produce amplifiers.
We
You do
don't.
not, right?
So we're the Marshall. Our website is Marshall-USA, but so Marshall Amps is out of the UK. But we get that we get those tech calls sometimes saying, "Gee, my amp is not doing this. I need some help," and we send them right over to Marshall UK. But
Yeah.
Marshall USA has been, like as you said, 40 plus years in broadcast. Very heavy analytic monitors for production. For live events, post-production. Also have a division called MXL, which is a microphone company. You guys may have heard of it. Used in all kinds of different applications in Pro AV and broadcast, but also a division of our company is Mogami Cable. So if you know who Marshall is, Marshall Amps, you probably know Mogami Cable, but that's our division. So
that's you guys. Yeah.
that's us.
So we're going to talk probably specifically about POV cameras today, right?
Sure.
And how that works with ministry and stuff. So first of all, what's a POV camera?
A POV camera is a point of view camera, right? So adding a unique perspective with a small, compact camera that you don't see from the other camera perspectives, usually seen kind of covering the drummer or the a wide shot of the congregation or baptismal table, or an extra camera really to add to the value of the production. To the best thing in church is be there and experience it, right, firsthand. But when you can't be there, what do? You stream it, right? And I think you guys are well educated in that world. But so POV cameras for me just means point of view. It's used in anywhere from television production to live music production to anywhere you need another point of view in your production workflow.
So we were talking before we went on the air, actually yesterday, and you kind of outlined the niche that Marshall excels in. You kind of described it. If somebody's thinking of this, they usually think of Marshall, or maybe they weren't even thinking of Marshall. They realized they got the Marshall. What is that? Say that again.
Yeah, very quickly when I started the camera division back 10 years ago, we started and grew very fast in church production, house of worship, also sports production of all types, also anyone doing a live event, because we started off with SDI workflows that are low latency, plug it into an SDI switcher. But so very quickly, for instance, backboards for the NBA, or T-box cameras, or goal cameras for soccer, people were looking for a small camera, high quality broadcast camera they can match with their other big beauty cameras they're going to use in the same production. So colors have to match, has to be time synced in their switchers, because if you're switching from one perspective to another perspective in production, no matter what it is, whether it's church production, corporate, or television production, is that they have to have similar looks, right? So adding a POV Marshall camera. So now we quite often notice that people, even in church production, will say, hey, look, I need a camera over near the keyboardist. Go grab a Marshall. Well, to me, that's a compliment to an industry standard, right?
Like Xerox, huh?
I love that. That's that kind of word of mouth, and it means that we're doing something right? So our cameras are very flexible, as you can interchange the lenses in them to achieve a certain angle of view or a certain look. They're remote adjustable to do the things I just mentioned on matching it with, say, a big shoulder-mounted Sony or Panasonic camera, right? But having that broadcast quality, the colors to look similar, and remote adjustability and flexibility is which our church users have really come to enjoy. And I think somebody mentioned sometime that Marshall is a business-to-business brand. If you're in production and you need a camera for a certain application, you know who Marshall is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you discover them when you find that you find the feature sets that match your application. But we're not Coca-Cola, we're not Apple, right? But we're deeply entrenched in broadcast and Pro AV, and especially church production, because of that gracious word of mouth that we've been able to take advantage of.
So I've been a big fan of some of the POV stuff. Actually, man, it's probably been, wow, it's been more than 10 years ago that I was seeing some examples at some churches, and then was trying to copy them and bring them over to my church. What is some of the most common, or what's the most unique POV camera setup have you seen in a church?
It's always the unique perspective. It's always the one over the drummer, or down the organist, the keyboard, or you've seen the one attached to the neck of a bass, right? They're looking down the strings. But really, I think it's anything that you don't expect, to be entrenched and to see things that In streaming anything, you want it to get to as close to being there as possible, right? Whether it's a live musical tour, any kind of tour, live event. When you're watching it at home, you want to have either the same experience or a better experience, that you would in person. So our cameras are unique in that you could put them, right on the pulpit, looking up at the pastor, or again, we talk about like baptismal tables, or down the keyboards, or for spillover rooms, even, getting a wide shot of the congregation, or really anything to add value to the production from a different perspective, right?
So these are small.
And so small and affordable that even medium and small size churches sometimes start with Marshall POV cameras.
So I keep cutting you off there, Todd. But so they're small cameras. Now, Steve, remind me, because I remember when we experimented and we stuck a camera on it was a guitar, right? Guitar neck.
Yes.
And we had issues. What our issues was it a connection issue, internet issue? What was the deal we had when we tried?
Our biggest challenge is I grabbed a very inexpensive wireless camera, and so the distance between the camera and the transmitter couldn't get too far. I wanted to create some range of motion. And fortunately for me, I had a son that was playing guitar in the worship band, so I could come out and go, "Hey, Chad, let's play with this." And then I got some of the other guitar guys to do it, and some of the other longer term people on staff at the church were like, "Oh my gosh!" They eventually took that thing and stuck it in a drawer and said, "We're never using that." They didn't like the shot. I thought it was the best. I thought it was just great.
The shot was good. I think the problem was the impression, because we kept having internet issues. So that brings me to a question for Todd here. So wireless. So can you got these cameras that you can use wirelessly? Or yes or no?
Well, so we came from broadcast. So it was an SDI coaxial cable to a switcher, and primarily because of reliability. Like you just mentioned, wireless technology has come a long way, but it wasn't necessarily reliable. And you need SDI is a broadcast reliable standard. Getting these guys, even high-end Pro AV, so getting these guys to go to wireless solutions or IP solutions is a very challenging strategy, but they are moving towards that stuff. We don't have a pure wireless system, but we do have and collaborate with people that do have wireless solutions to make sure our cameras are stable and reliable up to the wireless point. And there are very good solutions out there now. They're not necessarily inexpensive, but very good, reliable wireless solutions that we work very closely with those guys. For instance, if you watch Major League Baseball, the ump cam, right? The ump cam is a Marshall lipstick camera mounted to the face mask of the umpire behind home plate. And they're going to that shot quite a bit. It's interesting that our integrators get and make this stuff available, but really it's up to the producer, whether they use it on air or whatnot. And one of the major concerns they have is reliability, right? If they go to that shot and it fades out and you're watching Major League Baseball at home, you're gonna be like, this is not professional. What's going on? So anyways, long story short, we don't have a wireless solution, but we work with very capable, sometimes military spec wireless people that do. So if you want to do that, Steve, I would take another look. It's going to cost a little more than maybe.
Oh, they've banished me from that suggestion. I think, it wasn't.
It's doable. It's definitely doable.
My son played guitar, and I have a great appreciation for guitarists. Mm-hmm. And so seeing looking down the strings and seeing them, what they're doing right on the guitar from that angle, it was a cool shot. There's nothing better, really, Phil and I, we stole it from another church we were visiting that had a conference going, and I was like, why is that? What's on that guitar? And they go, that's a camera. And I went, oh, wow, that's an interesting idea. And they showed us what it looked like, and the shot did. And I was like, wow, this is really cool.
That's the stuff that gives me goosebumps, because, adding that interesting perspective that you don't expect. I mean, it really pulls people in. It allows them, gives them the opportunity to more engage, right? The whole idea of any message or service or show really is engagement, right? How do you increase or improve viewership engagement, and adding those extra perspectives. And again, in any or most church production, you're going to have one camera on a tripod that is a Sony or Panasonic, and it's your beauty shot. But you can't have one perspective, right? To add interesting perspectives, adding more of the Marshall POV cameras in whatever format is required.
So let me jump in there.
All right. Well, I was going to ask a question. So
well,
I always tell everybody, I'll let Steve ask questions, and then I jump in and start asking questions. So I'll just take over here. So we've had PTZ people on here before on the Church Solutions podcast.
Okay.
Are the Marshall electronic POV cameras, do they support remote control? That kind of functionality.
So I don't know if you know, but we have POV cameras, we have zoom block cameras, and we have full PTZ cameras. What we did in our POV cameras from the start is to make them remote adjustable. So we use very common VSCA over RS-485 or RS-232 or over IP control to be able to adjust and match them remotely. So, we say we make our cameras easy to use and able to plug into a lot of places, but if you can't remotely adjust them from the control deck or the control truck or control room, they become very difficult to operate, right? In any environment, especially outside with us or in dynamic light environments, you have to adjust those things like exposure, gamma, gain control, color, as the lights change internally or as the sun comes out behind a cloud. You have to adjust for that and adjust those other cameras in the workflow to make them look similar. You can cut to them and they're similar looks. So yes, all of our cameras are remote adjustable and controllable, even the maneuverability of pan, tilt, zoom.
So I was going to jump in here we probably have some churches that are still in the single shot mode. I've got a camera in the back on a tripod you were talking about, and I got the beauty shot, and it may be a man camera, it may not, but I'm buying into what Todd's saying, and I want to move on. What do I need beyond the POV camera, or how would you talk me through moving from the single shot to a multi-shot? What are your recommendations? And budget may be is a consideration, definitely.
Right. And we deal with church production from very small to very large that mimic a professional broadcast quality production value, right? So the idea of the Marshall POV cameras is one, flexibility in lenses. You can adjust what angle of view from the perspective you're mounting the camera and what you want to cover. Flexibility, what we talked about, remote adjustability, but very affordable. I mean, our POV cameras run from $300 to just under $1,000. So, to add another perspective very affordably with broadcast frame rates, broadcast connectability, flexibility, and I collaborate with a lot of other makers out there, whether it be switching companies, IP switching manufacturers like Netgear. I work with a lot of different people to make sure our cameras not only work in that environment, but they're easy to set up and integrate into the workflow.
Yeah. So what I was thinking you're hinting at, I think, is one of the steps is I'm going to need to get a switcher, a video switcher. If I've got a single shot and I'm streaming, I've probably got to get a video switcher, and it's either with our streaming folks, it can be built into their software encoder, or you can buy a separate video switcher. I'm assuming I'm going to need to route some cables and do some planning or about what I want to add 2 more cameras. Where should I stick them? Do you guys have recommendations for that? What have you seen that's been?
So our cameras, and I talk about the camera and the lens and the outputs, but you can do it a lot of ways, right? You can get a very inexpensive SDI switcher, for instance, or an HDMI with multiple inputs, switching ability. The complexity can vary from just switching to lower thirds to fades, to all these other production tools in a switcher, or cloud switching, right? I mean, to be honest, you could plug a USB camera into OBS project and be streaming multiple views, right? And essentially producing a program, right, from free OBS project software. So our cameras have USB where you can plug into a computer, like we're doing now, right, for a Zoom call. They have IP. You can capture a camera over the network and bring it into, say, a cloud or software-based switching solution, or hardware. Again, running coaxial SDI cable from wherever the camera's mounted into the SDI switcher and doing the switching there. So it can be hardware-based, it can be software-based, it can be free with certain solutions as far as switching software. Or, you can go all the way up to like a Ross or a Blackmagic switcher with multiple inputs and produce that way. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's, I think, probably a solution that these days from very inexpensive to very complex. And, during COVID, I think a lot of people needed to learn how to use that type of equipment.
Yeah.
So it's really exploded. And as you know, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. Streaming is almost essential in most church environments these days.
Yeah. So another thing that you mentioned earlier that I've watched my more proficient tech guys do, and I wonder if you had some advice, is they'll get that we have several cameras now. There's 3 or 4 cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the problems we'll have is that, this one camera's it's not tuned the way the other cameras are. This one all looks blue and these other ones are green or whatever. And I'm not a camera guy, but you were just talking about doing the remote tuning. It would be great if there was a, fix this camera to match this other camera. Do you have, what's the process for getting all my cameras to look similar so that when I don't switch shots, it looks like, oh, it's night, and oh, it's all of a sudden day.
That's right. And well, like you mentioned, so our cameras not only are very good low light capable, but you can remotely adjust them. Now we have free camera control software where you can run it from your PC or laptop and control those color and exposure and brightness and all that over what we call RS-485. But we also sell an RCP, or a camera control unit, where you can run 3-pin XLR cable to the camera from a touchscreen back in the control room, or over IP. Our IP cameras, we have free video management software over IP, where you can run just one Cat cable to camera from the switch, running power, control, video, and audio over one Cat cable. So there's a lot of ways to do it, from free camera control software, free video management software, to controllers, right? And get in and adjust. Our VSPTC IP has IP control, but has a dial for red, has a dial for blue, has zoom and PTZ joystick functionality. But from one button or dial, you can adjust those things to make sure your cameras are matched.
In sync. Is there
as closely as possible? I think.
Is there? Yeah. There's not an easy button that just says match.
Yeah, match. Well, we do
match 2 to 3.
Well, if we want to get real deep into it, we do have color matrix in our cameras, where you can take a color matrix setting in a Sony or Panasonic or something like that and dial it into our cameras so you can get a similar look and then fine tune it.
So you're throwing out some terms I'm not completely familiar with, like gamma adjustment, and there's white balance, and there's I assume some saturation or something like that. Is there
contrast?
Those are all the dials I need to be tweaking. Is there one that's gonna get me to my finished product quicker than the other? Or
well, so we work with people like volunteers at churches all the way up to professional broadcast engineers that have won Emmy Awards, right? So it really runs the complexity. Our cameras can be set to auto exposure, auto white balance, that tracks very well, and is very accurate when things change in the environment. So you can set it to auto and it's very accurate and moves with, or you can remotely adjust it like you suggest. And again, it depends on the wherewithal of the control. Either it's a volunteer or otherwise, but our cameras are very easy to do. If you look at our camera control software, for instance, there's like 4 or 5 controls, easy stuff like brightness, and then color adjust red, blue, and when you move those dials, you can see the effect on screen, and you can do it without the on-screen display menu coming up, like from consumer type cameras.
You mentioned the lipstick camera. as the cameras get smaller, do they get more expensive?
No,
No?
well, a fixed camera position in a small format has gotten very affordable. And we are very competitive in that. Like I said, we have options, and most of our small POVs run $300, $400, $500 full market price, and those are Sony sensors, very capable sensors, very good. We get in and tweak the color and the clarity, and we perfect them in processing chipsets. But no, oddly enough, our smallest cameras are some of our most inexpensive because they're less complex. There's no zoom block. It's a fixed position camera. Interchangeable lenses, the lenses run $20 to $30 for different focal length options. So they're very affordable. We start off in that we like to fine tune a good offering and make it affordable to implement. Really is our strategy.
So we've only got a few more minutes here left. If I'm a pastor or somebody on the tech team, and I've got a church of about 250 people, not real big, but not real small, but not real big. And I'm thinking, you know what? I want to overhaul my camera. The two cameras I have or whatever, I'm going to put them on eBay, and I want to buy 3 cameras from Tod Musgrave from Marshall Electronics. What 3 cameras would you recommend, Tod?
Gosh, I'd like to say, one of our full feature PTZs with, several $1,000s, but, for my thing is start small, you know what I mean? Start, do what is good a job with the budget at hand. Take a 503 miniature camera with even the stock lens is going to give you a very clear shot at about 75 to 80 degree angle of view. And start playing around with them, because very quickly you're going to realize that adding cameras enhances the experience, so start small and learn and grow, because we have, again, people that buy one camera from us for the main camera. Maybe their budget is under $1,000. So start off small, get familiar with it, get used to setting them at interesting perspectives and just interesting mounted positions, and it only grows from there. But the idea is start off small and go big.
What kind of customer support do you guys have?
So we have, dedicated team of technical engineers, and I can tell you that when you call us, you get us on the phone. You know what I mean? So our guys are very knowledgeable. They come from the broadcast industry, and they answer the phone or emails, and we respond, I would say, quicker than anybody else. And sometimes I'd like to say sometimes we're too responsive, where the guy has the camera at the church and he's plugging it in. He wants to know how to adjust white balance, but we're always available. You know what I mean? And we consider it a partnership, and we want to make sure our users are not only happy with the performance, but can easily integrate them.
Yeah, that's good stuff. All right.
That's really important, right? Especially for churches, typically they've got somebody that's overseeing, the AV area that may be paid staff. And then they've got that person becomes the tutor for everybody else. That's all the volunteers and stuff. So
absolutely. Well, we work with again, people that maybe have very little experience in setting up cameras for anything. They're a volunteer, but the idea, and it's not just in church production, it's also in collegiate sports, believe it or not. They use more students for the production than professional broadcast guys, right? So these are volunteers who have little experience, and the whole idea for me is to make it easy to use, easy to adjust, or be as complex as you need it to be, for the pros.
All right. So we're out of time here. So Tod Musgrave has been our guest today from Marshall Electronics. Tod, how can people get a hold of you?
So our website is marshall-usa.com. We have all of our cameras there. We have comparison charts to checkbox, the kind of features you're looking for. Or all of our contact information is there as well. 310-333-0606 is our phone number. Call us and let us know what you're looking for, or pose us with any questions.
Yeah, awesome. Good deal. Okay. All righty. Steve, anything before we sign off here on the podcast?
I assume all the purchases are online, or
So
is there
w-
distributors, or how's it work?
Well, I think start at our website, find the part
Okay.
number you want, and then you could Google search it. We sell through distribution channels. We
Okay.
sell directly to integrators you may hire to help. But we also have a direct access. So, all you have to do is start at our website and it's, go from there.
All right, sounds good. All right. Well, Todd, thank you so much for your time today. It's been very educational for us.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And folks, if you want to get a hold of Todd, you missed all that driving down the road or something, and you don't want to back up the tape, you can always reach out to us here at streamingchurch.tv. Just go to streamingchurch.tv and you can email us. You'll see the contact information there. Subscribe to our podcast. This is the Church Solutions Podcast, and subscribe to it, and you'll never miss a podcast. And give us a rating if you can. And as I said earlier, be sure and check out our website. We have lots of resources. The reason we do these podcasts, we don't make any money off them, but we do want to provide your church, your ministry, your organization with some resources. And so that and our webinars and the blog that we have, blog.streamingchurch.tv, all those things are meant to help you succeed in what you're doing. So if we can do that in any way, and as Todd mentioned, he's willing to help, we're here for you. So again, Todd, thank you for your time. Steve, Lacy, thank you for your time as well.
Glad to be here.
And most of all, thank you for listening or watching the Church Solutions Podcast. I'm Phil Thompson. Please take care of yourselves and each other. We'll catch you again next time on another episode of the Church Solutions Podcast.